Welcome to our Wednesday night small group and our study of the parables of Jesus. Tonight we're in Luke chapter 15. Luke chapter 15. This is our second session, and it's the parable of the prodigal son. Last week we started our study of the parables, and we started with the parable of the Pharisee and the tax collector. And if you'll remember from last week, we talked a little bit about what a parable is. We've all heard the church definition of parable. In church, they'll tell you a parable is an earthly story with a heavenly meaning. But what the word itself means is laying something beside something else for comparison. And I don't know if there's a connection here or not, but the thought that came to mind over the last week as I thought about the word parable is I thought about in math, there's something called a parallelogram. And there's something called parallel bars in gymnastics. And that's two things that are side by side and like each other. And a parable, by the definition of the word parable, is something that you've laid side by side as a comparison to something. So in this case, it's a comparison of something we're familiar with on earth, but it's being compared to something that happens in heaven. In fact, many of the parables of Jesus starts off with the kingdom of heaven is like, or the kingdom of heaven can be compared to. So it's a parallel look at two different things, here on earth and here in heaven. Last week's parable on the Pharisee and the tax collector was a look at two different people from two different sides of society. The Pharisee was the person that everybody looked at as the epitome of piety and religiosity. He was the perfect, of that day, Christian, if you will. The tax collector was at the other end. He was the guy that everybody looked down on, thought was a thief, just did not fit. And if you remember in the story, the Pharisee basically prayed to himself. He prayed to be seen of others, while the tax collector prayed, "Be merciful to me, God, a sinner." Different attitude when it comes to prayer, and a different attitude towards the relationship between the person and God the Father. The point was, we're all sinners before God, and we all should approach God humbly, asking for forgiveness for the things that we have done that have separated us from Him. So this week, we're going to look at the prodigal son. And I came up with, get ready, 2 questions for you this week. So you're going to have to really think hard. 2 questions for you this week, because I think there's 2 things that lend themselves to questions to start with here. So the first question is, if you ever had the opportunity to squander great wealth, what would you do with it? So if you won the lottery, or you got an inheritance that you didn't expect to get, what would you spend it on? Grandkids?
What do you call wealth?
Great wealth.
Great
Won the
wealth.
lottery.
More money than
Like
you've
you
ever
won
seen.
$500 million.
If you won the lottery,
Yeah, lottery.
I won the big lottery.
Yeah,
Yeah.
$10 million. That's a lot of money.
That's chump change.
$1 million.
speak for yourself.
Now, you know, you think about that lottery when the lottery is up there at $1 million, what you could do, what good you could do with that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you could deal with the homeless situation
Yep.
in Kansas City probably if you had $1
Right.
billion to squander. So I think you could do some.
See, I don't call that squandering.
No, I don't either.
Well,
Squandering is like if you're going to use it
Just
to,
throw it away.
buy a bar.
If
you
I was
know?
gonna-
Well, see, I thought Bill's answer would be you'd buy another antique car.
Well,
Yeah.
no, if I was squandering it, I would get John, and he and I would go buy old cars and old airplanes.
Now, that would have been my first thought on your
You going
answer.
with me, John?
I'm with you. But that's
All right.
investing.
That's
John,
squandering.
That's investing.
In
I
my
had never
opinion, that's
bought a ticket for
squandering.
the lottery. However, I will admit, many years ago, when Reader's Digest used to do the Reader's Digest sweepstakes, I would always mail it in. It cost me whatever the postage stamp was.
Did you ever
I
win?
never won anything,
Didn't-
but, and what was it, Publishers Clearinghouse.
Yeah.
I'd expend the price of a stamp and send it in. We never won anything.
And McMahon didn't come to the door.
No, the big check did not come to the door. Nope. Now, we did unexpectedly Vivian got an inheritance from a great uncle about 20 plus years ago, and it went in to pay for the three sons' college education.
You didn't squander that.
We didn't squander
Yeah.
it. So that college education, and then a little nest egg for us that we
Yeah.
used part of it for the trip to Europe, and we've got some more set aside for something else that we.
Yeah.
But yeah, it wasn't squandered. But what would you do with great wealth if you had it? Now here's the other question that kind of goes along with it, because the story about the prodigal son has really two aspects. One's money, but the other is he went off to the far country. So if you were going to run away to a far country, where would you go and why?
Oh, it'd have to be someplace warm.
Someplace warm?
Why didn't you ask us this 20 or 30 years ago when we were interested in going someplace?
When you were interested in
Yeah.
I mean, I would have gone to a beach.
a beach?
Right now, I don't want to.
Oh.
Like that hanging out.
Yeah. I'm not sure I'd want to go any place and stay, although I'll have to admit, we talked a few times while we were on our European trip. It sure would be nice just to take one of those apartments up there and just stay for a while. But,
Yeah.
that's too much culture shock at that point. I'm too old to make a runaway at this point.
That's, yeah.
But in today's parable, both things happen. The son gets a lot of money, and he runs away to the far country. And we're going to find out what happens to him.
Do we have any idea what far country that might have been?
No idea.
Nothing.
I've
Doesn't
always
say.
kind of thought the far country was.
But, far country could be anywhere because you're walking.
Yeah.
So how far is far when you're walking?
Right.
But there's a
But they
question
used to
here.
walk hundreds
But
of
it
miles
was
too.
somewhere at least far enough away that it was predominantly a Gentile country because pigs come into the story.
Yes.
So
So if
it
you're
was
going-
away from the Jewish enclave anyway.
Yes.
Bill?
Yeah.
I saw on YouTube about the Walton women, Sam Walton's children,
Uh-huh.
and anyway, his oldest daughter built that Crystal Bridges
Mhm.
Art Center
Right.
for millions, hundreds of millions of dollars in Arkansas. But, she was worth billions, so I don't know whether you'd call that squandering or not. Some people did because it was in Arkansas.
Yes.
Yeah.
But
So we're in Luke chapter 15, and Luke chapter 15 actually has three different parables in it. And one of the things that Matthew does, and Luke, in fact all the gospel writers do, is many times when Jesus talks about something, or the writer talks about something, they're debating or discussing something, they'll start from the lesser end and move up to the far end, to the more important end. So if you look at Luke chapter 15, the first thing it starts with is the lost coin. The lost sheep. The lost sheep. And then it moves up to the lost coin. Coin probably being, a denarii or something that was more valuable than the sheep would have been. And then it gets up to the son. So they start from a lesser value and they move up to a greater value. And one of the things that I think is interesting about the parable of the prodigal son is that it really could have been called something else. The emphasis is on the son in the parable, the younger son, but the emphasis could also have been on the father. In fact, a while back we did a study on Sunday mornings on the prodigal father, which was looking at the father in the story. So it could have been called the parable of the loving father, looking at God as a father that's there and ready to forgive just about anything if we would repent and come to him. It could also be the parable of the lost son, the younger son, Or it could also be the parable of the older son, who we don't know whatever happened to him, because Jesus doesn't tell us. He just kind of stops and leaves it for his hearers to figure out what happened to him. So let's see what we can find today in Luke's account of the prodigal son, as it is colloquially known.
You talking about the far country,
Mhm.
and I've always kind of related that to being, you're just walking away from family and from God, and you're going out to the world and seeing what's going on. And I don't think it makes any difference where you go.
Mhm.
You're just going out and wallowing in sin.
Just turning your
Yeah.
back on.
Oh, yeah,
You're
you're just
actually-
turning your back on.
You're actually taking my points.
Oh, shut it down. Okay.
You're jumping ahead.
You're jumping ahead.
You're gonna get up there.
Because actually that's the symbolism
Keep up
in
their
it, and we're gonna come to that.
Okay,
That's the
that's just
symbolism
the way
in it.
I'm sorry.
Nope,
Let me
that's fine.
shut up.
I'm glad you saw it that way, because that is the
Well,
symbolism there.
that's the way I take it. I mean, that's,
Yeah.
because somewhere it says, which do you relate to over here on page 18 of our book?
Mhm.
And I said the prodigal, because I have spent some time in the distant country.
Yeah.
And through the course of my life I have, and I wish I hadn't, but I have.
Because that's part of the symbolism in the story,
Okay,
is walking away from the loving Father.
right, okay.
So we'll get to that here in a minute,
Well,
though.
hurry up.
I'm sorry, I'm just slow. Anybody who's not part of our group listening, this is how we normally do things.
Yeah. Yeah, we all love each other.
Okay.
Oh, shut
Luke
up.
chapter 15, verses 11 through
Even
19.
you.
11 through 19. Sandy M., would you read for us, please?
Oh, me?
Yeah.
Okay. He also said, a man had 2 sons. The younger of them said to his father, Father, give me the share of the estate I have coming to me. So he distributed the assets to them. Not many days later, the younger son gathered together all he had and traveled to a distant country, where he squandered his estate in foolish living. After he had spent everything, a severe famine struck that country, and he had nothing. Then he went to work for one of the citizens of that country, who sent him into his fields to feed pigs. He longed to eat his fill from the pods that the pigs were eating, but no one would give him anything. When he came to his senses, he said, How many of my father's hired workers have more than enough food, and here I am, dying of hunger? I'll get up and go to my father and say to him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and in your sight. I'm no longer worthy to be called your son. Make me like one of your hired workers.
Okay. In the Holman version, verses 11 and 12 says, He also said, he being Jesus, he's told 2 parables, now he's going to tell the 3rd parable. He also said, a man had 2 sons. The younger of them said to the father, Father, give me the share of the estate I have coming to me. So he distributed the assets to them. Now, for the story to really make sense and to hit home, you kind of have to know what the culture was of that time when it came to inheritance. So this man has 2 sons. And under the normal inheritance laws or traditions of the time, the older son would have gotten 2 shares and the younger son would have gotten 1 share. Because the older son would have been expected to carry on the family farm or estate to keep it going. So the oldest son would have gotten 2 shares of the estate, and the younger son would have gotten 1 share. But here, the younger son comes to the father and says, Give me the shares of the estate I have coming to me. Now, this would have been extremely rude,
Callous.
rebellious,
This is
I don't know how else to describe it. but you-
hard-hearted.
Hard-hearted. Basically, he's saying to his dad, Dad, I wish you were dead so I had the money that I do what I want to do with it. You're delaying me having a good life because you're still living and I can't have my inheritance. Now, the father could, and in this case he did, distribute the estate before he died. But he didn't have to. But you would have expected, the listeners of the parable would have expected the father to have been angry, if nothing else, if not totally disgusted with his son for saying, I want my inheritance now while you're still living. Can't wait for you to die. But the father distributed the assets to them, just like the younger son asked. Verse 13, not many days later, the younger son gathered together all he had and traveled to a far country, where he squandered his estate in foolish living. So, in order to take his estate with him, what did he have to do?
Sell it?
He had to sell it. He had to sell that portion of the estate, the land, in order to get ready cash, coins that he could take with him, because you can't take the land with you. Now, short-sighted? Yes, because wealth back then was measured in land and animals, things that you had, not necessarily coins, I wouldn't paper money, but coins or silver or gold. It was measured in the land. And it was passed on from father to son to grandson to great-grandson, so forth. So basically, this younger son, in order to have a good time right now, converted all of his estate to money, and he wasted it. So he had nothing to leave for any children he might have. He had nothing to leave for anybody because he had nothing left. He had extinguished everything in his estate. Verse 14, 15. After he had spent everything, so he didn't have 2 pennies to rub together. Does some of you remember that saying? No money to rub together. After he spent everything, a severe famine struck that country, and he had nothing. I can imagine him throwing all kinds of parties, having lots of friends to come and enjoy his largesse. And now he's got nothing, and he's got no friends. He's got no money to spend on them. So he's by himself. He had nothing. So then he went to work for one of the citizens of that country, who sent him into the fields to feed pigs. Well, I think we all know that swine are unclean animals in the Jewish faith. In fact, you are not to have anything to do with them. You can't touch them, you can't raise them, you can't eat them. In fact, one place I saw there's actually in Leviticus a curse on anybody who has anything to do with pigs. So it's not something that you would do. And the people who were hearing this parable, their ears would have perked up. If they weren't already perked up because this guy is disrespectful to his father, disrespectful to his family, took everything and just wasted it, and now he's going to take care of pigs. I mean, that's like 1, 2, 3 strikes. Verse 16, he longed to eat his fill from the carob pods the pigs were eating, but no one would give him any.
What is a carrot pot?
I have no idea.
Didn't know it's something pigs like.
I didn't look it up.
Like a trough?
I'm assuming it's like corn ears or something.
Carob is a replacement for chocolate.
Okay, so what is carob then?
It must be some kind
So,
of,
my dear wife Vivian over here is going to get on Mr. Google
There's a
real quick.
pod.
If I can get it.
Chocolate comes in a pod.
mhm,
If the chocolate's
You Googling
gone,
it?
you only have the
So
pod.
maybe
must be.
it's some type of food pod that they
Yeah.
would feed to the pigs.
A species of flowering evergreen.
Okay? So leaves of some type. Now, this is like a third strike. He would eat what the pigs eat. Can you just imagine for a minute the Pharisees, if not just the common people, just the Pharisees, when Jesus said this? Absolute, total horror
Horrifying.
and
yeah.
shock that somebody, one, would take care of pigs, and two, would eat what the pigs got. Now, Bev, while ago you talked about walking away from God. I think what we see up until this point is a symbolism of people today walking away from God the Father, walking away maybe from family, walking away from friends. I'm going to have, if you will, sow my wild oats now. I'm going to have a good time. I don't need to worry about later. I got plenty of time to come.
That's right. I can be a good person later.
I can be a good person later. This guy evidently thought that because he wasted all his money, and now he's come, if you would, he's hit bottom. He's hit bottom.
And now he's gonna come around full circle.
Now he's going to come around full circle. Verse 17, when he came to his senses, when he hit the bottom, and he said, you know, I can do better than this. He said, how many of my father's hired hands have more than enough food, and here I'm dying of hunger? How can I have been so selfish, so stupid, my word? I'm going to get up and go to my father and say to him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and in your sight. I'm no longer worthy to be called your son. Make me like one of your hired hands. The son is smart enough to know that at this point his father has no call on him. He's walked away from family. He's walked away from his faith. He's dealing with pigs. He's not a good Jew anymore. He's walked away from family. He's walked away from faith. He's at the bottom. So my family, my faith really has no ethical, moral, legal, whatever you want to call it, connection to me anymore. So just take me back as a worker. You know, give me a place to work because I have nothing else that I can ask you for. Verses 20 to 24. Deb, would you read those?
Sure. They are, let me find 20. Okay. So he got up and went to his father, but while he was still a long way off, his father saw him and was filled with compassion for him. He ran to his son, threw his arms around him, and kissed him. The son said to him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and against you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son. But the father said to his servants, Quick, bring the best robe and put it on him. Put a ring on his finger and sandals on his feet. Bring the fattened calf and kill it. Let's have a feast and celebrate. For this son of mine was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found. So they began to celebrate.
Okay, verse 20 says, so he got up and went to his father. The word so here is kind of a connector. So says, think about everything that's happened in these last 9 verses. Because of that, the result is, I'm going to get up and go to my father. But one of the commentaries said that you can interpret the phrase he got up in a couple of ways. He got up physically, yes, but he also got up spiritually. He realized that he needed to return to the Father. And the symbolism here is not only his earthly father, but maybe his heavenly Father as well. He was not expecting to pick up where he left off. He left off. He was a son. He was an honored member of the family. Now he's basically a beggar coming home. But while the son was still a long way off, the father saw him. That means the father was looking for him. Long way off means the father's got to have been out on the road looking to see if maybe Johnny's coming home. He was filled with compassion. He ran, threw his arms around his neck, and kissed him. Now, we've already totally scandalized the crowd and the Pharisees. We're just adding more to it. We're just adding layers to it. So, number one, old men did not run.
Right.
Men did not run. Because in order to run, what do you got to do with your robe?
Pick it up.
You gotta pick it up, wrap it around your waist or something to run. Men did not run.
It's an elderly men especially.
And yeah, particularly elderly men did not run. So first off, he ran. Not done in that culture. Secondly, it says he threw his arms around his neck. Men did not show emotion. You did not get weepy-eyed with family. You were the stoic. Men suck it up. They did not express emotion. And now comes the real bad one. He kissed him. And kissed here doesn't mean he gave him a peck on the cheek. The word means he's kissed him all over. Means he if you will, slobbered all over him. Kissed him both sides, up and down, you know. Really happy to see him. Continually kissed him. Ignored the fact the son was probably without shoes. Was probably in rags at this point. Probably smelled to high heavens.
Smell like pigs.
Smelled like pigs. And he hugged him and kissed him and hugged him and kissed him. It didn't matter. He was coming home. Then the son said to him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and in your sight. I'm no longer worthy to be called your son. And that's as far as you got. Now, look back at verse, 18 and 19? Yeah, 18 and 19. The guy had a nice long speech to give. He got about a third of the way through it. The father said, nope, that's enough. The father told his slaves, quick! In other words, without delay, get this done. Bring out the best robe and put it on him, put a ring on his finger and sandals on his feet. Then bring the fattened calf and slaughter it, and let's celebrate with a feast. I learn a lot of stuff when I prepare these things that I didn't know before. So here's something interesting. Bring out the best robe and put it on him. Well, the guy's probably in rags at this point, so he's not dressed very nicely. But who would have the best robe in the house?
The father.
The father. So the robe they're putting on him is not one that was hanging in the kid's bedroom. He got the father's best robe. Secondly, they put a ring on his finger. Well, that one I kind of understood. Because back then, rings were signet rings. They signified that you spoke for the family. So that means you're back in the family again. And put sandals on your feet. Slaves were the only ones who went without shoes. If you were not a slave, you had shoes, and that signified you could go wherever you wanted to go. So the father, number one, didn't give him a chance to get his apology out, but immediately welcomed him back as a repentant son, put the best robe on him, signified he was part of the family again, and that he was a free man. The son was immediately and unconditionally welcomed back into the family. And then what happens? He tells him to take the fattened calf and kill it, and let's have a feast. Well, the fattened calf would have been something they saved for very special occasions, because you didn't eat a lot of meat back then. If you ate meat, it was for a very special occasion. And a fatted calf would have fed more than just the family. So this was going to be a party for the neighborhood.
For the whole village.
Everybody was going to come in, and we were going to party. Why? Verse 24, because this son of mine was dead and is alive again. He's lost and is found. And they began to celebrate. So the party's getting ready to go. Everything's getting good. We're having a good time. And then the twist comes in. The older son comes back. Remember I said parables were stories that all had a twist? Well, the twist is not only the father's attitude, it's the older son's attitude. So the older son comes in.
He wasn't happy.
25 to 32. Sandy S., would you read those?
Meanwhile, the older son was in the field. When he came near the house, he heard music and dancing. So he called one of the servants and asked him what was going on. Your brother has come, he replied, and your father has killed the fattened calf because he has come back safe and sound. The older brother became angry and refused to go in, so his father went out and pleaded with him. But he answered his father, "Look, all these years I've been slaving for you and never disobeyed your orders. Yet you never gave me even a young goat so I could celebrate with my friends. But when this son of yours, who has squandered your property with prostitutes, come home, you kill the fattened calf for him." "My son," the father said, "you're always with me, and everything I have is yours. But we had to celebrate and be glad, because this brother of yours was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found."
Okay, in the whole one, verse 25 says, "Now the older son was in the field." Well, what was he doing in the field? Probably supervising all the servants and the field workers. After all, at this point, everything in the household belonged to him. The younger son had gotten his inheritance. Now everything that was left was his. So he was out taking care of business. As he came near the house, he heard music and dancing. Well, here when they talk about music and dancing, again, you need to go back to the original words. The Greek word that they translate as music means a symphony, means an orchestra, means a big band. It's not just somebody playing a guitar, or whatever would be the equivalent of a guitar back then. There was a big band going on. And then when it talks about dancing, it's not just a couple, it's a chorus. In other words, there's a real full-blown party going on right now. And he's curious. Oh, what's going on? Did somebody come? Some special guest come while I was out working that I didn't know about? So he summoned one of the servants and asked what these things meant. At this point, he's just inquisitive. What's going on? Why are we having a party? "Your brother is here," he told him, "and your father has slaughtered the fatted calf because he has him back safe and sound." Now, I'm reading into it, I expect the servant probably expected the older son to be happy his brother was home. Nope, not happening. Then he became angry. And again, the word here from angry means rage. So, my imagination, okay? Older son comes home, hears all the music, calls one of the servants out of the house. What's going on? Son, your younger brother is home. I imagine he's out in the courtyard and he's stomping around like a maniac. You know, like a toddler giving a tantrum. Became angry and didn't want to go in. Well, not only is he angry, he's insulting his dad at this point. Because in that culture, the older son would have been expected to play host to the party. And he wasn't going to play host. He was not going in. So he was insulting his dad too. So his father came out and pleaded with him. Okay. Again, this is not something the head of the house did. So not only did the father sow grace to the younger son, he's also sowing grace to the older son by coming out and trying to get him to come in, even after being socially insulted. But he replied to his father, "Look, I have been slaving many years from you, and I've never disobeyed your orders." Remember the Pharisee from last week? How self-righteous he was?
He was perfect.
This guy is not much different. It almost, to me, sounds like the older son has a employer-employee relationship with dad. You know, I've got everything. It's all mine. Why are you having a party for this reprobate that just come home? In fact, the older brother, did not acknowledge that he had a younger brother. Notice it says,
Your son.
your son, not my brother,
Yeah.
your son. He ignores the fact that he's family.
Son.
You never gave me a young goat. Not a calf, a young goat. He was willing to take something less. so I could celebrate with my friends. But when this son of yours, not my brother, your son, who devoured your assets with prostitutes, you slaughtered the fatted calf with him.
A little jealousy there.
Little jealousy.
Why?
I can almost imagine, I'm making assumptions here, so please bear with me. I can almost imagine Jesus looking around the crowd and looking directly at who?
The Pharisees?
The Pharisees.
Oh, yeah.
As the older son. Because after all, Jesus is now beginning to at least hint at the fact that the kingdom is for everybody, not just for the older son, the Jews. I could almost see him staring at the Pharisees when he says this. I'm sorry, I'm reading into it. You can ignore that. I'm reading into it. Son, he said to him. The father begins by saying, you are still my son. You are always with me and everything I have is yours. Yes, because the younger son has already taken his. But we had to celebrate and rejoice because this brother of yours was dead and is alive. He was lost and is found. End of story. What happened? Everybody can figure it out for themselves. Jesus left it for the Pharisees and the crowd to come up with their own answer. Did the older son go in? Did the older son stay out? What happened? Oh, we don't know.
That's the
But there,
rest of the- That's the rest of the story.
that's the rest of the story from Paul Harvey.
Paul
And
Harvey.
Paul Harvey's not here to tell us.
I've always wondered why the older son's out working in the field and the younger son comes home and they have time to kill the fattened calf, invite the whole neighborhood. They're in the middle of a big party that had to take hours to get ready before the older son, who really thought he was kind of in charge, comes home and finds out they've done all this and he didn't know anything about it.
Sometimes they stay in the field a few days, though.
Oh, okay, see, now I didn't know
He's on
that.
the other side of the hill.
No, I think they do.
It
Okay.
could have been there,
Okay.
that Bill's, I mean, on the other side of the farm.
Okay.
Yeah.
We don't have to make the
It's
farm.
like
always seemed
shepherds.
strange, that, yeah, now the
Shepherds
shepherds, I
would stay
understand,
out.
but I just,
Yeah.
a field, you got a field, you go and work in it and come back.
Well, it depends on how big the field is.
Well, okay, but that's,
But there are, you were talking about symbolism
Yeah,
before
they
about
had
wandering
lots of-
away
lots of
from
acreage
God.
in those
This
days.
is kind of, I think, the point of the story. Believers, and I'm saying things that just comes to mind for me.
That's fine.
Okay? I kind of see the older son in some way reflective of believers
right,
who need to be joyful when somebody who has been far away has come back.
Oh,
I
yeah.
once was lost.
Yeah.
Once was
Now
lost
I'm found.
and has
Oh,
come
yeah.
back. Because we
Yeah.
were all prodigals once.
Absolutely.
We've all been in that situation. But in some cases, sometimes it's hard to accept somebody who's been away for a long time
Well,
and comes back.
and sometimes people know what somebody that's been away has been doing and they can't.
They can't
get-
accept.
They can't get.
They can't accept
They
them
can't
back.
accept that, yeah.
Or that person being accepted back, that person accepted back detracts from where they are,
Yeah.
if that makes sense.
Well,
They're a problem.
Their problem, yeah.
Right,
and these parables are so, there's so many applications. Like, I mean, this is spiritual, what we've been talking about.
Absolutely.
But there's huge family dynamics
Oh, yes.
oh, yeah.
that we can learn from, too.
And we need to remember that the angels in heaven rejoice when one is saved. So those of us that aren't angels down here ought to be rejoicing too. But sometimes we don't.
Well, and it's hard, I think it would be hard for the son, the younger. He just didn't wake up one day and say, I really messed up. I'm sure it took him a while to say,
Oh, yeah.
I have messed up and I've got to go home and I've got to straighten this up.
And it couldn't have been easy to go home.
No.
It's not easy. I've done
Come
it.
home and admit that you made a mistake, that you'd wandered away.
Not knowing if you'd be accepted or
Yeah.
rejected.
Mhm.
Not knowing that Dad was looking out the window for him every day.
But again, different names for the story. The story in this one with the loving father is a symbol of the God that we all would like to have, who forgives us when we do things that we shouldn't do.
And we don't want to be the resentful son.
Yeah.
Mm-mm.
So any
We
other
don't wanna be a
comments on
prodigal either.
today's
Or the
session?
prodigal.
I like that.
Okay, next week, the session is on the
The
sower.
sower,
The
yeah.
sower.
Sower.
The one I tried to put in this week.
That's a hard
So
one.
lesson 3
Sower
is the
a hard
sower.
one, I think.
No, no, that's what he means.
I've always thought it was hard.
Throughout the grain,
I-
some of it goes in the good part, and some goes in the bad part.
Yeah, that
Yeah,
makes sense, but
S-O-W-E-R,
wait till you
guy who
finish.
sows out the
Oh, he
seeds.
always screws
It'll be
everything up.
hard.
Okay, let's close with prayer.
S-O-W-E-R.
Heavenly Father, we thank you for today. We thank you for this lesson in the parables today. Thank you that while we've all been prodigals, you have always been the loving Father that welcomes back the repentant one. May we likewise welcome all who repent and return to your family. For we ask it in your name. Amen.
Amen.
Amen.